can that boy steal the baby from me? I will call the villagers and the chiefs, and if nothing is done, then I'll move to plan B. Just watch and see.
It all began many years ago, in the quiet village of Tango. One by one, babies started to disappear. No footprints, no cries, no trace at all. Where did the babies go? No one knew. The villagers whispered in fear, but no one dared to speak openly, because fear had a name, and it lived by the river. For years, silence was the only way to stay safe. But one morning, everything changed. The air was strangely quiet as Emeka walked by the river with his fishing rod. Even the birds stayed away. Something deep inside pulled him forward, like an invisible force tugging at his heart. Then he saw it. A small shape floating in the river, wrapped in old white cloth. At first, he thought it was just rubbish, but as he got closer, his heart stopped. It was a baby, just a few days old, lying still in the cold water. Emeka stood frozen. Why was the baby there? All alone? He couldn't walk away. Dropping his fishing rod, he stepped into the cold river, his feet sinking into the soft mud. The cold didn't matter. He picked up the tiny baby and held her close. Her breathing was weak, barely there, just like his racing heartbeat. Without a second thought, he wrapped her in his arms and headed to Aunt Azuka's house. Azuka had raised him after he lost his parents. She was like a second mother. He trusted her. Knocking frantically on her door, panic filled his chest. Aunt Azuka, he shouted, pounding on her door. I found her, by the river. She was alone. Azuka opened the door and gasped at the sight of the baby in his arms. Dear heavens! I couldn't leave her, Emeka said softly. She was dying. Azuka took the child gently, her hands shaking. This is no ordinary child, Emeka. We need Mama Ori, she whispered, her voice filled with dread. Mama Ori, the village midwife. Known as the mouthpiece of the river goddess, she was the one people turned to for answers. If Mama Ori spoke, the village listened. They believed she communicated directly with the river because she was always seen sitting close to the river and mumbling some words no one understood. Emeka felt a cold shiver run down his spine as he followed Azuka to Mama Ori's hut. Inside Mama Ori's dim hut, the air was thick with smoke and fear. She stared at the baby without blinking. This child does not belong to us, she said darkly. She is from the river. If you keep her, blood will follow. Emeka stood his ground. She's just a baby. Mama Ori's eyes flared. The river goddess does not care about innocence. She only wants what is hers. Azuka whispered, Please, Emeka, don't fight the river. I'm not leaving her, Emeka said, voice firm. Even if the whole world stands against me. She deserves a chance. Mama Ori's face turned red with fury. You've been warned, she spat. I won't stand by while you bring ruin to this village, she shouted. As Emeka and his aunt left Mama Ori's hut, she immediately went to the village chief's house to demand an emergency meeting. Once everyone gathered, she told them about the baby that Emeka had rescued from the river. She asked the chief to arrest Emeka and take the baby from him so they could throw her into the river, where she belonged. One of the chiefs disagreed, saying they should wait a few more days to decide what to do. He reminded them that if they kept throwing babies into the river, they would be destroying their future generations. The other chiefs agreed with him and told Mama Ori to go home. This made her very angry as she left. Meanwhile, night had fallen. Inside the dim hut, Emeka sat with the baby in his arms, her tiny body warm against his chest. He fed her slowly with a spoonful of pap, just as Aunt Azuka had shown him. You're safe now, he whispered, his voice barely holding back tears. I don't care what they say. You're not cursed, you're just a baby. And I won't let anyone hurt you. The baby let out a soft sigh, her little fingers curling around his thumb. Emeka smiled through the pain. I've lost everything before, he whispered. But I won't lose you. He wrapped her tighter, kissed her forehead, and stood. Outside, the village stirred with fear and anger, but inside, it was just the two of them, and love. The next morning, farmers returned to their fields, to find their crops rotting and decaying, poisoned by something no one could explain. Fish were found dead along the banks. They didn't ask questions, they just assumed it was Emeka's fault. They believed the baby had brought the curse. Fear spread quickly. The youth of the village decided to march to Emeka's house. When Emeka heard the news, his heart raced with fear. He quickly went to his aunt's house. "Aunt Azuka, I have to leave," he said. "I need to protect this baby." "I can't let them throw her into the river," Emeka said, his voice steady. "I'll protect her." Azuka sighed, knowing there was no changing his mind. She gave him the address of a distant relative in the city. "Go, Emeka, and take care of her." As the first light of dawn broke over the village, Emeka packed his things and quietly left the village. Emeka's first few days in the city were confusing, full of hunger, and all about trying to survive. The address Aunt Azuka gave him seemed like a bad joke. Every time he asked for directions, people either ignored him or sent him the wrong way. The city felt huge, and no one was willing to help him find where he was looking for. By the third night, Emeka had no choice but to sleep in an abandoned building on the edge of the city. The walls were bare, and the roof had holes letting in the cold night air. But it was a shelter, and that was all that mattered. He spread a torn blanket on the hard ground, his body sore from all the walking, and carefully laid Nana down beside him. She slept soundly, unaware of the discomfort around her. Emeka sat up for a long time, watching her chest rise and fall as she slept. His mind was racing. How would he feed her? How would he keep her warm? He couldn't keep going like this without help. His heart broke every time he looked at her fragile body, so trusting and innocent. She didn't deserve this life, but it was all he could offer her. The next morning, Emeka went out again. With the little money Aunt Azuka had given him, he bought a small container of pap from a street vendor, but it wasn't enough. The baby needed more than that. He searched the streets for firewood, picking up scraps from old crates and sticks. He found a small pot in a nearby market and boiled water, mixing it with the pap, hoping it would be enough to fill Nana's tiny stomach. When he returned to the unfinished building, he fed her the warm pap, watching as she drank it all, her eyes wide and trusting. Emeka couldn't help but whisper, "Please don't die, Nana. Please, just hold on. I'll take care of you. I promise." At night, the cold seemed to get worse. Emeka wrapped Nana in every piece of cloth he could find, holding her close to keep them both warm. He lay awake, listening to the sounds of the city below, thinking about how far he had come and how much further he needed to go to keep them safe. But things didn't get easier. The money his aunt gave him ran out, and he knew he had to find work. He went to the nearby market and met a woman called Mima Bayo, but she didn't like him for no reason. He tried to be polite, but she chased him away. Emeka didn't give up. The next day, he went back to the market and finally found work. He started pushing a wheelbarrow through the crowded streets, carrying heavy loads for the traders in exchange for a few coins. He tied Nana to his back, holding her with one arm while pushing the wheelbarrow. People stared at him, some with pity, others with judgment. He heard their whispers as they passed. Some called him foolish for bringing a baby to the market, while others just gave him cold, judging looks. But Emeka didn't care. He kept going, focused on what he had to do. Every coin he earned went to buy Nana food, and the medicine she needed to stay healthy, and if there was anything left, it went to buy himself a small meal. Most nights, he went without food, but it didn't matter as long as Nana had enough. One day, one man spat at his feet and muttered something about too many mouths to feed. As soon as he saw her, Emeka gritted his teeth and kept walking. He had no time for the cruel words from others. Emeka would sit with Nana in his arms, whispering to her as she drifted off to sleep. You'll grow up safe. I'll make sure of it. Meanwhile, in the village, Mima Ori sat in her hut, staring out at the darkening sky, her face full of anger. She couldn't believe what had happened. Emeka had escaped with the baby. She called the villagers together, her voice trembling with rage. "Listen to me," she shouted. "If that baby is not brought back, the river goddess will punish us all. Every firstborn in this village will start to die." That's the message from her. The villagers were silent, their faces pale with fear. Ever since babies started vanishing, the villagers were always afraid of the river. They knew that the Mima Ori words were not to be taken lightly. With her voice hard as stone, she shouted, "I want you to find Emeka. Do whatever it takes. Force Aunt Azuka to tell you where he is. Get him and the baby back." One of the richest men in the village, Mr. Okeke, stepped forward. His face was serious, and his eyes gleamed with something dangerous. "I'll pay you all well," he said, handing them money. "Bring Emeka and the baby back, and I'll make sure they pay for this." "I can't afford to lose my only child," he pleaded. The men wasted no time. They rushed to Aunt Azuka's house, forcing her to tell them the address she had given Emeka. Though she was terrified, she knew that refusing would bring even worse consequences. So she gave them the address. The men set out, with more determination. With the address Emeka's aunt gave them, they went to the city, searching for any trace of Emeka. For days, they looked everywhere. Finally, they heard about the market where Emeka had been working. They asked around, and soon enough, they ran into Mima Bayo, the village gossip. She hated Emeka and was more than happy to help the men. "I knew it. That little thief," she yelled, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I always knew he was trouble." She led the men to the building where Emeka had been staying. When they arrived, they saw Emeka rushing inside, carrying the baby. He must have sensed something was wrong. He tried to escape, but the men were too fast. They grabbed him, and one of them snatched the baby from his arms. People gathered around, shouting at Emeka, calling him a thief. On their way back to the village, Emeka begged them, "Please, don't hurt the baby. She's innocent," he begged. Meanwhile, when they arrived at the village square, there was a storm of shouting voices. Emeka stood in the center, breathless, clutching the baby, Nana, to his chest. His eyes darted around. There was no escape. The villagers wanted blood. One loud voice cut through the noise. "Throw the child back into the river. That's where she belongs." The elders debated. Some shouted curses. Others stayed silent, watching Emeka with pity. But just as the chief raised his hand to speak, chaos broke out. A group of women came stumbling through the crowd, dragging someone behind them. It was Mima Ori, the midwife. Her wrapper was torn. Her face was bruised. She looked wild, defeated. She tried to throw another girl into the river. One of the women screamed. "We caught her tying the girl up in the bush." The crowd gasped. Mima Ori looked up slowly, her breathing heavy. Then, to everyone's shock, she started laughing. A dark, broken laugh. "You fools," she shouted. "You think I served the river goddess? No. I was serving my own pain." Everyone went silent. Ada dropped to her knees. "When I was just 16, I was pregnant," she began, her voice trembling. "It wasn't my fault. But the man denied me. My parents disowned me. I gave birth under a tree, by the river, alone. And the baby died in my arms." She broke down sobbing. "I buried her with my bare hands. And I swore, from that moment, that any child born in shame would return to the river. Like mine." Gasps filled the air. Even the chief staggered back in shock. Mima Ori wiped her tears and looked directly at Emeka. "That baby you found," her voice cracked. "I was the one who threw her in." Emeka's heart froze. "What?" he whispered. Mima Ori's eyes darkened. "Her mother was a maid. She came to me for help. begged me. But she died during childbirth. And the man who got her pregnant paid me to erase the evidence. A chill swept over the crowd. Who? The chief demanded. Who paid you? Mama Ori turned her head slowly and pointed. Everyone's eyes followed her finger, straight to Mr. Okeke, the richest man in the village. Mr. Okeke stood frozen, sweat dripping down his face. She's lying. I am not lying. Mima Ori screamed. You gave me money to handle it, your words. Mr. Okeke stumbled back, his face pale as ash. I didn't know you would. I thought you'd take her to the city. Mima Ori screamed again. You know what I do. You just didn't want a scandal. The entire village stared at him. Emeka's eyes widened with disbelief. You, her father, he whispered. Mr. Okeke's knees buckled. He fell to the ground. I was a coward, he whispered. I thought if I buried my shame, it would go away. I never imagined she will survive. He looked up at Emeka, trembling. You saved my child, the one I threw away. Tears poured down his face. Please, forgive me. Let me take her. I want to make things right. But Emeka's jaw tightened. He stepped back, holding Nana protectively. She's not yours anymore. You gave her away to die. I carried her through hunger, cold, and rejection. I became her father when you became her killer. Mr. Okeke broke into sobs. Let me at least support her. You can keep her, just let me be part of her life. I beg you. The chief stepped forward. Emeka, he said gently. You are the only one who acted with a true heart. This village owes you. He turned to the crowd. And Mima Ori will be judged not by the river, but by us. The villagers roared in agreement. Mima Ori was dragged away, her screams echoing in the distance. 1 year later, Nana ran across the compound, laughing, her tiny legs wobbling. Emeka chased after her, smiling for the first time in months. He had found peace in the city. Mr. Okeke visited every month, quietly paying for Nana's school and food, trying to earn back the right to call her daughter. Emeka never fully forgave him, but he accepted the help. In the village, no child had been lost to the river since Mima Ori's arrest. The curse had lifted, not because of a ritual, but because the truth finally came out. And the baby they all wanted to drown? She had become the one who saved them. Never let fear or the opinion of others stop you from protecting the innocent and standing for what is right. In the end, truth will always come to light, and love will always win over evil. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Thanks for watching.